Johan, there's so many complex things that happen in transaction, but it sometimes feels, if I have to explain it to someone, it feels like it's a lot of chaos happening all at once, but everyone knows exactly what they're doing and everyone knows exactly what's expected of them. But how can an agent or a seller or buyer work together to make sure that this transaction process runs smoothly once it gets at the agent until it gets at the bond attorney or bond originator and also the attorney? Maybe just shed some light on that.
Amoré, I think you've touched a very valid point in that regard, because, you know, we always say that the registration period is as long as the parties cooperate, you know, and it can be speeded up considerably if everybody brings their specific requirements to the party. For example, your purchasers obviously have to apply for a mortgage loan in certain instances, and we know that that is the biggest chunk of the time frame, is the time that it takes to get the loan approved. So many of the agreements provide that the purchasers have to provide documents within 3 days or apply for a mortgage loan, but the sooner the better. If you give your full cooperation as a purchaser to the mortgage originator or the property practitioner that attends to your loan application, that is first and foremost very, very important. And you can imagine that it goes with an array of documents that you have to lodge: salary slips, proof of residence, FICA documents, and the like. Those specific items take time. So if you can produce those documents, you have a bundle readily available. I always say, if you're a seller, you know you're going to need certain documents as soon as the trigger strikes for purposes of the transaction. And the same goes for the purchaser. You know that somebody's going to ask your salary slips, your proof of residence, your proof of identity, and such. So it's important to get those readily at hand so that you can proceed. And then the original documents is normally our biggest problem, and that is normally from the seller's side. The original title deed, if it's not bonded, a copy of your home loan statement, if you still have one, because we have to request the cancellation figures, copy of your last lights and water electricity account. Those are very important because we need to utilize that for purposes of requesting the clearance figures from the City Council, and then just reacting on the transferring and bond attorney's requests as and when they do request you to come and sign the documents. You get people who maybe might drag feet because they are either busy or they're out of town, but really make a plan to give your cooperation, because help us to help you type of situation, and that's very important. And I think that would streamline the process per se. The rest is pretty much a procedure that we chase from our side, but it's important to cooperate.
I have to agree. There is professionals, and make sure that you appoint a qualified professional, aka a property practitioner, and then also a real estate attorney. So what you need to remember is there's a lot of people that will hold your hand in this process, and you need to cooperate. From the bond approval, I would start as far back as the contract that you sign. When you do sign a contract, make 100% sure that people know your intentions. If there's certain things that need to happen before this before the transaction can finalize or the registration process can finalize, make sure that you add that in your contract. And then also make sure that when you sign this contract, that you're happy with the thorough content of it, because we have had some buyers and sellers being in the hot water complaining afterwards, saying that I did not fully agree with this clause in the contract. It is your prerogative. If you sign there at the dotted line by initialing at each page and signing at the back, you agree with the content. And that is 100% on you. So you need to read through it. And anyone that any agent or attorney will allow you that time to do, because it's your biggest asset that you're selling, one of your biggest assets. And then the other thing is, when you do receive your bond approval from the bank, make sure that you read through every single clause that they give you, because those granted quotations sometimes might sneak in a, oh, this property needs to have approved plans, or, oh, you need to first sell your property. And those are very important suspensive conditions, because of that couldn't, if that doesn't happen, this process of the transaction might be delayed extensively because of that. So when you receive all your bank quotations from all the banks, make sure you read through all of that. This is your purchase, and the onus relies on, I know we are all very, very busy, but the onus lies on you to make sure that you read through all of that. So read through that and make sure you comply by sending all your documentation to the agent and to the attorney, because this will really speed up the process. And if we have to extensively sometimes ask for documents, and that delays the process. And I just want to touch on one more thing, Johan, is the thing is, if you're married, the way that you are married determines on how you can buy. And sometimes, and the reason why I'm saying this is sometimes people say that they are married outside of community of property, but they cannot produce us with a certificate or the what do you call it, the agreement. Ja, ek kan nie die woord onthou nie. Wat mense hoef jy kan weer? Is it
anti-nuptial contract?
Ah, thank you. They cannot provide us with that anti-nuptial contract, or they do provide it, but it doesn't have the legal stamps on it. If it doesn't have the legal stamps, then that attorney that did the contract for you did not register it. And that means that you're married in community of property. So make sure that when you do start the process, that you cross your T's and dot your I's, especially if you intend to buy this on your own. So, and my advice would be, make sure your documents are, all your ducks on the row, and make sure that you've got your documents ready and read through everything. The buck stops with you. Even if there's professionals, you need to read through it and ask the questions, because this is ultimately your purchase or sale.
I agree. And maybe just in closing, Amoré, what's important is that, and you can verify this, the banks are stressing enormously on building plans these days as a requirement for purposes of properties. And they sometimes don't even sneak it in anymore. They place it in as a pertinent condition prior to registration that a copy of the approved building plan has to be provided to the bank. Now, many sellers make the mistake to think that the city council is the custodian of all building plans. That is not the case. They do keep the building plans, but in a very bad fashion, might I add. So you can never rely on the city of Tshwane in this instance, or the city council where you live, that they will have a copy of your approved building plan. So if you intend to sell your property, make sure that your building plan is in order. You can always, outside a selling sphere, you can always obtain or request a copy of your building plan from your local authority. And the red lights should start flickering if there is no building plan available. Then one should redraft it, get it submitted so that it can be approved, ready for in case the banks demand a copy of such an approved building plan.
I have to say that I think in the older areas, I've seen the banks being more lenient. And I've asked them the question, why do you sometimes ask for building plans and sometimes don't? Because we sell property in a very older area. Some properties have been built in the 1950s. So some of these sellers might have lived in these properties for 51 years. So the answer that I got was different from each valuator, and I think it's because every bank differ. But it was the answer that they've given me is, if we can see that the property has been recently built, then we'll ask for building plans. Because in the area that I live and sell, and they always say, no, my plans were burned with Ende-Pretoria. So that's the answer that the whole moed gives, and that sometimes work for you in your favor, but sometimes it don't. And the other person said to me, if we can see that there is more than 3 active kitchens, if you've got a property that was divided in 2 and you've got a flatlet, then they might ask for building plans. But building plans is a huge headache, and it's good that you have it. But yes, that's my opinion.
No, definitely.
Thank you, Johan. We really appreciate your time.